Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to my channel. This video is going to be going over my October month P&L and trades. October was a crazy month. Honestly, we started to heat up really well, and I had my biggest month ever, so that was pretty awesome. September I made 60K, and then in October I made $238,000, so a pretty big jump. That just came from a couple things, basically just consistently just scaling. Sizing up, and trying to just refine my strategy, take better trades. But again, we also had a lot more opportunity in October than we had in September. But generally, it came from just trying to scale up more, taking bigger positions. But I've been, for the most part, been taking the same exact trades for like a year or so now, probably more than a year by now. Yeah, so it's basically just refining, getting better executing, trying to take out mistakes, and that's what November is going to be for me. It's going to be mostly just minimizing the mistakes I made, taking out the trades that I lose on and that I give back profits. So if I can just minimize my mistakes, I went over all the things that I did wrong, and calculated how much money I lost on the trades that that were not good. And basically I spent $200,000 in losses on bad trades. So this month, if all I did was just cut those out and didn't have any of those bad trades, mistakes, obviously you can't say that you'll never make a mistake, but just for purposes to kind of help me motivate myself to improve, and to want to improve is being able to see that I made $200,000 in mistakes. So I would have had a roughly $400,000 month, almost $500,000, if I had just minimized those mistakes and cut out the bad trades. So regardless, though, still very excited about this month. Still my biggest month ever. And again, it's very rare for really many people in the trading world, one, to be consistently profitable, and two, to make $250,000 in just 1 month. So this is life-changing money, and I understand that, and very grateful for every single dollar that I made. I did pay $70,000 in borrow fees, as you can see here, and my gross was 308. So I'm just looking around options right now to see if I'm able to find a broker maybe somewhere else that I can use, or maybe just open up multiple accounts and kind of just see which one has a cheaper locates on the day and use that one, because this is kind of a big number and a lot of money to be just spending on locates, but it is cost of doing business, and I understand that. But if I can minimize it, then I would like to. Just going into some stats on the month, my win rate was at 73%, which is pretty good. That's for the most part, that's average. I'm right around 70 to 75% going over all my trades. Now these numbers I was not very happy with. The following numbers that I'm going to go over, and after I go over them, I'll explain why. My average winner was about $8,000. Average percent gain was 12%. Average loser was almost $7,500, and average percent loss was almost 10%. Now, what does that tell me? That's telling me that my average winners and my average losers are roughly about the same. So the only thing that's keeping me afloat is my win rate. So if I had a 50% win rate, that means I would probably be close to break even on the month, right? So the only thing that is helping me make money is that I'm correct most of the time, and that's very important. You want a very good win rate, but it's also very important to have a better risk reward. So in my previous months, generally this is about 2 to 1. My goal is always to take 3 to 1. Now the reason for these big average losers is because I had a lot of outlier bad record loss days. I had multiple huge losses. For the most part, you can see a $380 loss, a $3,000 loss, a $1,000 loss, $300, $400, $1,000, $700, $3,000. So these are all normal losses to me, and I'm okay with taking those. What I'm not okay with taking is a $20,000 loss, a $12,000 loss, a $50,000 $10,000 loss, $20,000 loss, a $20,000 loss. And these big losses is what I'm going to be trying to avoid and trying to minimize in November. Because if it wasn't for this, one, I would have better stats, and two, I would have saved roughly $200,000, which is a lot of money. So that's going to be one of the biggest things I'm focusing on next month, is to try to just improve on my stats, try to get better at trading, obviously, but biggest thing, minimize my mistakes. Some lesser important, yeah, those stats aren't that important, but I'm going to be going over just my trades that I took, and you know, kind of showing you guys the mistakes that I make. So the first one is SLDV. This was my first biggest loss ever, and this was the, I think, first or second or something, like third day of the month. But you can see here this huge day that we had on the first. You know, we gapped up and gave it all back, which was a nice gap and crap. But what I did wrong, and this is a pattern that used to work, but it just doesn't work anymore. And you know, it took me a while to start realizing that you know, this kind of setup just doesn't work anymore. So you can see, you know, gap and crap. So generally what I used to do is this, you know, the following day of a gap and crap, so the second day, I guess, I would short the pop in the morning, and then generally those would end up fading off and, you know, going back to the lows of, you know, where it gapped from the previous day. But what we've seen in this newer market, and what I started to notice, is that these second days just keep going up. They don't fade off. You know, after their morning pop, they keep going. And, you know, I ended up fighting the stock. I ended up adding into, you know, every pop, and I held, and then, you know, I was in, you know, probably, let's just say, I don't remember exactly. Actually, I can pull it up. So here's how I traded it. You can see added into, you know, all these areas that looked like they was going to fail, only to get squeezed, you know, at, you know, after hours, and ended up covering after hours, and, you know, lost almost 23% on it, you know, on big size. And for me at that time, this is, you know, probably one of my larger sizes that I've taken 25,000 shares, and to lose 23% on it was huge. I don't, you know, that was a huge amount of money. That was a big loss in my account. So now I'm going to be avoiding this type of setup. I am going to be just not trading these. You know, they used to work, they don't anymore, and you know, that it is what it is. You just got to adjust to the market. And you know, now maybe I'll take these as a long trade. You know, after I see it consolidating and holding into the afternoon, I've considered actually taking these as a long. So I've started doing that instead. So that's that. The other trade I wanted to talk about and go over was PED. As you can see, you know, back here in, what is this, August, had a nice green day, failed, gave it back. This day, September, gapped up, ran a little bit, and failed. So, you know, generally a stock that fails, right? And then you can see these wicks here, obviously failing on the daily. So, and you can see the top here is around 250, right? So here's how I traded it and what I did wrong. So basically I had started shorting into this area, into the resistance, thinking that, you know, the top and the resistance of 250 on the daily would hold, only to get, you know, squeezed another, you know, almost $2 from my entry. And let's pull up, this is the 13th. Let's pull up that my executions. So you can see I shorted here, and I never cut my loss until it hit 3. So this was a big chunk. You know, it turned out to be a $12,000 loss. You know, this was more, but I was able to recover some, you know, by, you know, taking a little bit here, piece by piece. But I think what I learned from this is that, you know, one, this is front side. It had just popped up in the morning, right? And I started shorting, and I didn't give it enough time to develop the chart. So if I had let it develop and, you know, started somewhere around here, I would have been fine, and that would have been a great trade. But I got in early on, you know, on something that had just literally just popped up, and people were just seeing the news and things like that. So now I'm going to be, you know, trying to avoid front side as much as I can, making sure the chart develops a little bit, you know, waiting for that first big pullback, and then looking for entries. And even though this didn't really offer any great pops, you can see even if you took a little bit on some of these pops, you know, you still would have been, you know, riding it down very nicely. The other mistake I made was just not understanding price action very well, not reading price action, not reading level 2, not looking at volume. So the first trade, you know, the mistake is, you know, not adjusting to the market. You know, the pattern has shifted. The second trade was, you know, trading the front side of the move, being too early. MRIN was not reading price action very well. So we can see, you know, had a huge run here. This was really nice. Let's just look at the intra. You can see that pre-market, you know, this had gapped up huge and sold off, right? And out of the open, we had, you know, almost no volume. It just kind of died off. And what I did was, as soon as I started seeing this, you know, this was right around VWAP, I started shorting right here into VWAP, not considering and not looking that this has literally just exploded in volume and overwhelmed any volume that was traded since the open or pre-market, right? And I didn't take that into consideration, and I ended up getting squeezed pretty bad. As you can see, you know, from $2 all the way up to $5.50. But if I had just waited and been patient and let the chart develop and shorted into these key levels on the pre-market chart of $5, 5 to 6, and I would have made an amazing trade. Let's just say I would have, you know, my average is at 5, covering down at 350s, $1.50. That's a huge move. So that's the mistake I made. And I can just pull up, what day was that? The 21st. So you can see shorting here and getting squeezed. And instead of cutting, you know, once I started seeing this, like, you know, reclaim VWAP and start going, I ended up shorting more. And so that was my other mistake. So terrible trade on MRIN. And then EVK was something that kind of hit the nail on the head for me, and was kind of the last straw, and to be able to understand gappers, you know, now fully as much as I do now. EVK was something that just it blew me out, and after this I've completely changed my strategy on gap and craps. Let's pull up the intraday chart. So you can see, you know, pre-market, kind of a failed chart, just kind of ended up going down and just fading off. So I was like, okay, it's done. So I took this VWAP push here, added some after it kept going right here, and then it, you know, ended up going all the way to $7. I didn't hold from, you know, $2 all the way to 7. I cut my loss and restarted later, but you can see that this had just completely squeezed, and the pre-market chart meant nothing. So what I took away from this is that, you know, fresh chart on the daily shouldn't have been touching this. So, you know, now we'll be trading this, being more patient, not taking the front side of the move. So that was EVK. And then I guess one more I can go over. SRK, another huge loss. this was me like just trying to trade it off based off the fundamentals. They had an offering, so I was like, okay, it's got to come down. Not considering that, one, this is a large cap with the, you know, with the smaller float, meaning that this can really run, and it's a large cap, which means it's a better company, it has better fundamentals, and I didn't take that into consideration, and so I lost on it. And I lost on it the first day, thinking that it's going to fail and come down, and I had to cut it for a big loss. And the second day, I shorted here in the morning once it like failed this little pop, and didn't cut my loss when it kept going. And just I literally covered here the following day into this morning drop flush. So ended up holding. My initial goal was to swing in the first place, so I stuck to that plan, but I had no idea that this was going to squeeze to 45. So, you know, trying to trade something out of my niche is also what I'm going to be trying to avoid, and SRK was out of my niche, not something that's part of my strategy, so clear avoid for next time. So those were kind of all the things that I didn't do very well this month, and what I'm going to focus on next month to avoid trades like this. I don't exactly have any like good trades to show you guys. You know, there's a lot of them that I did that were really good, but I just don't have any that I remember off the top of my head, just because I really remember my losses more than I do my gains. Because if I take a good trade and I win on it, I expect it, and there's less to learn from it than there are to learn from mistakes in trading, and that's just my opinion. But overall, you know, pretty happy with this month. You know, obviously dollar wise, very happy with the month. Not happy with the type of trades maybe I took and the type of mistakes I made, and we'll be looking to improve and to completely erase and avoid these types of moves. So I hope that was interesting. I hope you guys took something away from that, and yeah, we'll try to trade better on in November. And if you guys want to give me a like, comment, and subscribe, that'd be great. And I'll see you guys next month. Feel free to join my pre-market live streams as well, where I go over my trade plans. All right, guys, you guys have a good one.